On today's episode, we have a special guest as we dive into some old and new school perspectives on the NBA. We talk about the 65 game rule and also what makes Jordan so untouchable. Welcome back to another episode of From the Rafters podcast, a podcast about changing the way fans talk about basketball in a world full of media myths. We are here to tell you the facts, the data, and give you some informed opinions. Show's a little bit different today. As always, you got me, Kev, and you have one of the originals, Big Kev. Pops, welcome back to the show.
Hey, feel good. Brings back old memories.
My dad often sends me different reels and stuff on social media. Then we talk about it in the car or something when I'm on my way, whoop-de-doo, whatever it is. Uh, but yeah, Dad, one of the things you brought up recently, or I guess one of the things I saw that you sent was a video talking about the minimum game requirement for NBA players to qualify for season awards, with it being 65 games. Uh, what's been your thoughts on that?
I never been so much a fan of that because I'm a player that even when I played, I loved the game of basketball and I loved to play. I love to play all the time. And I know certain players like Michael Jordan, Allen Iverson, and several other players, Magic Johnson, I could probably go down the list, that would play, if they were healthy enough, they would play 82 games. It wasn't about taking days off. I understand about that now, but I still not in agreement with it.
What's your meaning of healthy enough when you say if they're healthy, they'll play? Because I think guys play when they're healthy.
Well, I'm talking about some players play even though they injured. They don't take off, or some play with this like now with low management and stuff like that. Some players just skip games, or like when you take some players, they don't play. They play a certain amount of game a week, or something like that. Like MB didn't want to play. I think it was they really didn't want to play him back to back games and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Um,
like on back-to-back nights. There were seasons where I think it might have been what last year where he said he wasn't playing back-to-backs
right.
from the jump, which ended up making sense because he didn't last last year, right? So I think when we're thinking about player availability, health is a big driver of that. I don't think people are just resting because they don't want to play or they don't love the game of basketball. I think part of the reason they rest today, or a big part of it, is the science behind it and really taking in consideration players' health for the long term kind of big picture goal of winning a championship. I think for teams that are losers, then yeah, guys can just go out there and play and do whatever. But I think for teams that are really trying to win a championship and are in win now mode, then you see with certain players they do kind of have to manage their capacity. Like you look at the Sixers, right? They got to be careful with Embiid. He's injury prone. You can't act like he's a Giannis Antetokounmpo or a Russell Westbrook or even a Tyrese Maxey, guys who are younger or guys that are just capable of playing a full 82. Same thing with Paul George. Same thing with Kawhi Leonard. Those guys can't play. And Giannis had an interesting point when he was asked about this to the media. He said, you know, in the beginning, he was okay with the 65 game rule because it kind of played to his advantage because he's a little bit younger, he was healthier, but now that he's getting a little bit older, he's starting to feel the effects on his body, and it just makes it hard for these guys to stay eligible for the big time awards if they get even one injury throughout the season. Like we're seeing it with Joker, right? He's out 2 to 4 weeks. He might miss enough games to knock him right out of the MVP race, leaving Shea as a front runner. Now I need Shea to get, an unserious injury that'll make him miss, maybe have to rest for 4 weeks. So then maybe Tyrese Maxey can move into that number one spot. But I think that's why we see it. It's really health. I don't think it's kind of any of those other things that get thrown into there.
So, like when you say that, I think the goal for everybody and everything was to win championships. I think that was the goal starting out this season for every, and I think every team have that. Even though some teams might know that they didn't, but like you say this, but players didn't rest up for just even for them to make playoffs or championships years ago. I think that takes away from the game. I think it cheats the fans, and stuff like that. Because like when you say that fans do save up their money to go see a player play,
Hmm.
and some players like you would say players is okay with that. They take off, take off and not show a fan. As a fan, when I go there and I want to see, I don't really go there to see teams. Like a lot of times, I go there to see certain players play a game.
Hmm.
Like when a player come, like when certain players come to my town, even when I was younger, and I would go to the game, I would go into that game to see that player play. And I think like that's still like you talk about that, but I like what some like what even when the Sixers didn't have a chance to even win a championship, you still resting these guys even when they not doing it. So now they still taking
Well,
advantage of that to play less games.
who are you talking about when the Sixers didn't have a chance
I
to?
mean, you know what? Even last year, at a certain point, the Sixers was out of it. Was
Yeah.
really out of it.
And so at that point, right, you still have the assets on your team to win. So during that time when we were out, we were still playing Tyrese Maxey, right? We were still playing our young guys and the rest of the supporting cast, but you don't play Paul George if he's not 100%. You don't play Joel if he's not 100% because you're only increasing the likelihood that they'll have prolonged effects into the next season. So I think, looking at last year, right, for the Sixers, and then we'll get ready to transition. Uh, Embiid played in the Olympics, right? And then he came back to start the season and the knee just wasn't there. The difference this year is he had off like 11 months leading up to the start of the season, and now he's working his way back and he's playing a majority of Sixer games now, at least over like the last 20 games or so. So that's why even when we're out of it, you don't just play those guys that are injury prone because it ends up just hurting your team in the long run. And I'll comment on your piece about the fans. I think there's two schools of thought. So definitely there's fans. And I mean, in general, I feel like most people going to NBA games today you got to have a little bit of money to go just because the cost has gone up over the last couple of decades, right? Now, there are some people that, maybe they do got to save for an extended period of time to go to a game. And then if they're going to the game, there is the potential that maybe the guy they want to see doesn't play that night, right? And I think that's like, I know when I buy tickets to games, that's something that I try to account for, right? It's like, do I want to go to this game on this day to see this guy? Like, is he going to play? And I had to do that when LeBron came to Philly last season. I'm checking the schedule. I'm like, are they on the back to back? It's like, okay, they got a little East Coast trip. They're playing in Washington 2 nights before he gets a rest day. He'll probably play. But I think that's something that fans have to take into consideration. And I think most fans understand, like, hey, he's trying to be healthy enough to compete in the playoffs and keep it that way, and especially since he's older. But then I also know some fans personally who are like, no, I need him to play when I buy tickets. But I think generally, you know, because of the situation we're in and knowing that teams will rest marquee guys, that's something that you got to account for when buying a ticket. But I still think the vast majority of people that are buying tickets to games can probably swing going to more than one game per season. And the last thing I'll say on this topic is that when I was a sophomore in college, I think I was a sophomore, you took me to the OKC Sixers game, right?
Yeah.
You remember that?
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And Russ and KD, it wasn't like a great game by them by any means. Like the game wasn't like a super exciting, like, oh yeah, my Thunder are killing the Sixers. Like for a young Sixer team at that point that didn't have a lot of weapons, they hung in there the entire game. Like OKC significantly underperformed. So it's like, sure, maybe you're disappointed if guys sit out, but even if they play, it doesn't guarantee you're gonna get that great satisfaction that you're hoping for when you go see them play.
I'm gonna let you in with that because we could probably go back and forth and back and forth like we do at times. So I mean I'm gonna let you have the last one there.
Yeah, because
But no, I have one question.
go
One
ahead.
question though. How did now the game you were talking about when in Philly when LeBron came? Did LeBron play that night?
Yep, he played.
Okay, all right, okay. If he didn't play that night, how would you feel?
It would have been a little disappointing because
Okay.
we were going. I was like, at that point, Devin hadn't seen LeBron play live probably since she was a kid, right? And she can't really remember seeing him live. So we were going for the full purpose of seeing him. But again, when we bought the tickets, we knew it was a chance that he wouldn't be active. And then you kind of got to live with the result, right? It would have sucked. But like that's kind of the gamble you take. And I think we're all informed enough to know that going in. And I think another misconception that I hear from, I'll say your generation, Dad, is that these guys get paid to play 82 games. I think that's a misconception too. I'm Most owners' goal is to win a championship, right? When you're paying guys big money. Um, and I won't even say most owners. Yeah, I can say that. But for a lot of teams, when this comes into question, if it's a team that's a contender and our goal is to win a championship, then I'm not necessarily paying you to play 82 games. I'm paying you and the rest of our staff, whether that's the coaches, the training staff, whoever, to win the ultimate goal of winning that championship, right? And so I have to understand that for some players, playing 82 actually hurts our chances at winning our goal, right? At achieving our goal. So for some guys, 70 games might be the number. For some years, like 60 might have been a number for Kawhi. It all depends on what your organization's goal is. And not every organization starting out the year even has that same goal. Some organizations want to be lottery teams, like the Brooklyn Nets, which is why they probably need to trade Michael Porter Jr. So I just want to clear that up.
But like I said, I'm not gonna try to keep going on this. But I'm gonna say like when you like I was just listening to somebody was talking about Iverson and how Iverson was and how you know what and when he said that Iverson used to have pads on him and all like this because he wanted to perform for the fan who may never get a chance to see him or only wanted to or would only get to see him one time. Maybe this is the only time that he gonna get to see him play in the life in a lifetime that he could watch an Iverson play. So like Iverson wanted to go out there and perform. We heard like Magic say like that. We heard like Michael
Yeah.
Jordan. We heard players
Yeah.
that great players that play all the games and still perform high in the playoffs.
Hmm.
And it was 82 games, and I think the game was rougher then. It was a lot rougher back in the day playing 82 games than 82 games are played today.
Hmm. I think there's yeah, so a couple things there. You have one, I think we're more informed now than we were 20, 30, 40 years ago, right? Like we just have so much more information, data, and science when it comes to player health. So we know a lot more than we did when Magic, even Iverson was playing, right? And definitely when Mike was playing. We just know more, we're practicing, we're smarter just as a human species as a basketball world, right? And so Sure, back in the day, people used to play 82, but now like, hey, the season's very long. It's a lot on our bodies. And I know that the game might not be as physical from grind it out in a post kind of thing that we're used to seeing in the 80s and 90s and earlier forms of basketball. But at the same time, there's a couple dynamics here that we also have to consider. One, some players, or I think a lot of guys in the NBA start playing like they have a lot of basketball miles on their body from playing AAU from the time they're 8 until they go into the pro level. And a lot of them are playing basketball year round because they're traveling to so many different places. And then also, even though the game isn't as like physical from, thinking about being able to beat people up, it's still a lot on your body based on how much up and down the game is with pace. So like people have looked at like the number of steps that you end up taking in games today compared to previous eras. So like there's a lot of things to look at, I think, on the surface when you say like, yeah, playing 82 games for the fan, that's a great story. That's a great narrative, right? But like for some guys that just isn't the smartest thing to do. But Dad, I have another. I guess I'll move on to something else you sent me this week, and it was Kevin Garnett talking about the importance of having a point guard. You remember that video?
Yeah, yeah, I remember him that video I sent you.
So, just to kind of give you my response as if, I'm driving in the car on the way to the grocery store like we usually would. I think the only thing I don't like about that video from what KG said is I feel like he conflates size with the skill set. So he makes a statement like, because Kevin Durant said in the beginning of the year or in the offseason, the small point guards are kind of a disadvantage for your team, right? Because if you got a guy out there that's 6 foot, even 6'1", 6'2", that's a small guard in today's NBA, right? Where size is really an advantage. So if you got a little guy, and given that the game is played with so much space, you can really isolate these little guys on an island and have them at a disadvantage having to guard bigger, stronger people that are just as fast, if not faster, right? And so that was Kevin Durant's point. KG made a statement like, you need point guards because you need someone with the IQ and the ability to set people up in spots, especially in like fourth quarters of tight games and in playoffs. And so he also dismisses the idea that kind of the small point guard isn't useful in today's NBA. And my response to that is two things can be true, right? I think we saw with the Houston Rockets in the beginning of the season when they were trying to adjust to not having Fred VanVleet, they didn't have a point guard that could get the ball to certain guys in spots late in games, and so they lost some games because of it. But at the two things can be true, having a small point guard that can do that can also kind of hurt your team on the defensive end.
Well, I don't think like I kind of agree with him about I do agree with him about running a team, like a point guard that run the team. Like you like you got, and I'm not so much just saying about size wise. I'm talking about because if, like some teams had like bigger point guards. I mean, but like some people just really know how. See, the game is so much different now too, and I can see why they're not like really small point guard. The game ain't played where in a way that point guards are really needed, or especially if you want to say small point guard. But it's not so many more. It's not so many point guards even in the league now. I don't believe that true point guard that went away from the league. And like he's saying is to get people balls in certain positions. Like you don't have that. Just like you don't have people penetrating and dishing out
Oh, that's
or
not
stuff
true.
like that or creating something to go under the basket. You don't have that because
That's not true.
go ahead.
Yeah, that's not true. So
Not
I don't,
true?
yeah, I gotta disagree a little bit. So I'll agree with you in the sense that we don't have traditional point guards as much in today's NBA. Like the CP3s are kind of gone. I don't like to say we don't have point guards. I like to kind of specify because the guys we have today still are point guards. They still set things up for their team. They just have the point guard position has evolved to where these guys can get to a bucket, right? Like Steph Curry can get to a bucket. Ja Morant can get to a bucket. Tyrese Maxey can get to a bucket. Jalen Brunson can get to a bucket. Luka Doncic can get to a bucket. Doesn't mean these guys aren't point guards, because a lot of these guys also can generate a lot of assists for their teams, right? They're getting downhill, they're attacking defenses, getting 2 feet in the paint, kicking it out to wide open shooters on the 3-point line, right? Like, so that element of the game still exists. That's the part I was disagreeing with you.
Well, you know what? It's different. It's different, Kevin. Because like even like when now, like when you say Steph Curry as being a point guard, Steph Curry is not really running the offense.
Why you
He's not really
why you
running
don't,
the offense, Kevin.
what does running an offense look like?
What?
What does running an offense look like?
You seen Chris Paul play, right? You
Yeah.
watch Chris Paul play.
Mhm.
Is Steph Curry running the offense like Chris Paul would run the offense?
I think Steph Curry does run an offense.
Do he run an offense? No, his thing is Steph Curry is still more a point guard does really what is needed.
What does that mean though? Because Steph does what's needed for his team.
You know what, Steph? You know what, Steph is more of a offensive player. He's not really a guy that's going to run the
Chris
offense.
Paul's more
He's
of an
not really a
offensive player
guy that's
too.
going to come down and get a person the ball where he needs to really get the ball at.
Because he's so well, no, I think he does do that though. Because
You know what? He busy running off picks, running around. He may bring the ball down court, but he's not really trying to set an offense up and run it. Most of them plays is going to be for him.
okay, so
Most of the plays, like what
let
I'm
me
saying,
let me
most
ask
of
you this, Dad. Let
go
me
ahead,
ask you this.
go ahead, go ahead.
Because this speaks to how Steph is just so dynamic and how the game has evolved that your point guard has become more of a scoring weapon. Most of my years playing basketball, think back to like pre-high school, right? I was playing point guard, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, you were playing point guard.
Okay, so when I was playing in middle school, right? My team, we had a lot of young guys. Like when I was in eighth grade, I think we had a lot of even sixth graders on our team, like sixth and seventh graders that were new to the game. So I really was like the team, right? Like even Earl was on that team, but that was like his first year playing basketball, right? So we kind of had a little Shaq and baby Kobe thing going. Uh, but I played point guard. I even came up with a playbook, right? Like I designed plays for us to run, right? And you know what most of those plays involved, or at least 2 out of the 3 involved?
What?
They involve me probably like making a pass even to the wing or to Earl and getting the ball back. That's exactly what Steph Curry does, right? Like he'll get the ball to someone in a spot, right? And then he'll then become a weapon, whether that's coming off a screen or whatever it is, wherever he runs. So I think just because he's not, I think just because his better attribute or what he's most known for is scoring and shooting the basketball, you can't dismiss his ability to still be a point guard because Steph Curry's still a gifted passer, right? And like he draws so much attention that part of his job and part of what makes Golden State successful is when he catches the ball and draws two, and now he's making that right pass to a guy for a dunk or for a wide open shot on the three or something like that. So yes, he still is a part of running that offense. Because if he's not, then I guess you would have to tell me who Golden State's point guard is. And sure, you can make an argument for a guy like Draymond, but when I watch games and I deliberately count, like, okay, who's bringing the ball up and actually initiating sets? Because when a lot of people will define point guards as the guy that runs the offense and initiates sets, that guy for Golden State is Steph Curry.
You know, I'm gonna ask you a question. What position do you think I played in my life?
You play point guard.
Okay, so you know what? I know Isaiah. I can go down a line of some point guard, and I scored. I
Hmm.
scored, but you know what? But it was
I've been told you were a gunner. So you
well. You know
probably
what?
more like Steph than any of these other point guards.
No,
I think
no,
you
no,
like.
no, 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 no.
You just
My
can't shoot from as far away.
Steph could shoot. I couldn't shoot. I could score points. I knew how to score, and I knew how to do that. But like you know what? Even when I remember when I really went to college, and my coach used to tell me, run the offense. My first thing was to run offense. It wasn't for me. It wasn't for me to score. Now, if the play broke down or the play didn't what you call him, he gave me the freedom to go then. Then I can go. But I had to run the offense. And the offense wasn't for me. I wasn't the first option of the offense or none of that.
Who
My
who
Mine
led your
wasn't in there.
team?
But you know, I found ways to score. But my
Who
first
led your
thing was
team in
to
scoring?
get the big men in play, to get other people involved in the game.
Hmm. Let me ask you this: Who led your team in scoring in college?
All except my freshman year, I did.
All except your freshman year, you did. And who were you your freshman year? Number two or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were number two. And who were you behind?
Huh?
Who were you behind in scoring?
I was behind a guy named Leroy Loggins.
What position he played?
He played small forward.
So what I think I'm hearing is, right, when and this is like I feel like this is for a lot of teams that suck. Or I don't want to say your team sucked, but
Oh no, we
for,
won it.
yeah,
We
yeah,
won.
yeah,
We
yeah,
won.
yeah. You on your conference and things like that. But I think from a coaching standpoint, right? When you have somebody with such a gifted scoring ability like yourself, or like a Steph Curry, or like a Ja Morant or a Tyrese Maxey, you still want to kind of run your offense to get other people involved, right? Otherwise, they end up just standing and watching, not getting into a flow. And so
Say that again.
they end up like kind of standing and watching. Like if you don't get other guys involved, if you're not like running your sets to move the ball, if you just got guys kind of going one on one or even just going pick and roll every time down for a two-man game, the team doesn't get a flow. So yeah, sure, Coach Retton probably wanted you to run the offense just so you guys didn't stall out on possessions or you come down jacking. Right? The team's better when you're playing, moving the ball and things like that. But yeah, Steph and all of them are still point guards. I know you don't agree, but
Right. That's true.
yeah, that's why I think it's important to. I think when we talked about this in the past once before, that's why I always ask you, like, tell me what a point guard is and what they do, right? And so, uh, then you can kind of base it on that criteria.
You know, my opinion. You know what? Chicago won championships. But like I say, they won it without a bona fide point guard. They won championship.
Well, they didn't. What you mean without a bona fide point guard?
They didn't really have. To me, they didn't have a true. Paxson was not a true point guard. Paxson to me was more of a shooting guard than something like that. See, because you had a lot of the offense even run through Scottie Pippen.
So he was initiating.
Who?
Scotty.
Right. More so than your point guard.
Okay.
Like it goes back to when Milwaukee had a guy named what was his last name? Pressey. I think it was Paul. That they used to call a point forward.
Yeah. A point pull forward is fine. Like some teams have different constructions, right? Where, maybe a guy like Paxson or a guy like Kerr, they're gifted at shooting, right? They probably were better jump shooters than Scotty, right? So if you can kind of get those guys in position early to, get open for shots, that helps your team compared to them kind of initiating and then have to go get set or like running off an action away from the ball just to bring them back to the ball later. So I think there's ways to get creative there. But since you brought up Chicago, in our last 8 minutes or so that we have here, I want to ask you, why is it that Michael Jordan is so untouchable?
What do you mean untouchable?
No matter what someone can tell you, Michael Jordan will forever be your GOAT.
One thing that I gotta say, his play, what he done. The things that he done and things that like just like saying like back to back three peats. Right then and there, his performance, his actions in them things,
But
that's
that's
gonna
that's
make him.
that's a,
Huh?
that's selection bias, though.
What you say?
When you talk about when we only look at his championship years, that's a form of
That
selection. You're only picking the good times, right?
you know what? Go ahead. I'm gonna let you finish. I don't want to but in.
Oh
You
no,
know,
sorry. Yeah, that's I'm just saying like you're just picking the years he did great. Tell me about he played what, 15 seasons? He won
Kevin.
championships in 6. What about the other 9?
Kevin. Before Mike won a championship, they were saying he was the greatest player. Before he even won a championship.
So
Before, like, and people talking about maybe the years he didn't win, but Mike took over the years, and Mike and Magic and them turned the torch over to him before he even won. If you
after,
listen to things that Larry
after they
Bird
were
and
done
said
kicking his
about Mike,
butt though, after they were done whooping his butt through all the 80s.
huh?
After they were done whooping his behind throughout the 80s and those guys
Okay,
were past their prime.
okay,
Then it's
but
like,
you know
yeah,
what?
now it's your turn, Mike. Just like LeBron had to take the league and put it on his back for 20 plus years. Once
You
those
know
guys
what?
get out their
But
prime, man,
you know
it's like,
what?
what more can they do?
You know what? Now, like you said that. You know what? When Mike was playing in the league, there was no other great player as great as him.
The league
Now,
has gotten
when you
better,
talk
though.
about hold up, now you don't hear. You know what? Once Mike got took over, what Mike probably was taking over even in his freshman, I mean his first couple of years in the league. But he went against some teams in the playoffs. Yeah, yeah, he went through it. But once he reached the top, he never went down. When he got to the top, he never went down. He never had to run to another team. He never had to call buddies up and come play. This is what holds him up there, and this is what people know about him and see.
But that Bulls team was a great team. Like, even when Mike took his 2 years off to rest and load manage, like that team still was competitive and a leader in the East. When you look at teams that Bron has been on, when he leaves those teams, man, it's like the end of a war zone. Like those teams are nothing without him. So yeah, sure, Mike was at the top and stayed there, but his team was also great, right? I think when you look at LeBron in instances, and
His
especially,
team was great.
yes, the Bulls were a great team. Like when you remove Jordan, they still were successful.
What making the playoffs?
Yes.
Okay, they made the playoff. But you know what? Even when you say that, even when you say that, when when LeBron was in the East was weak.
I don't know if you can you
East
can
was,
just say the East. I can say when it was weak when Jordan was playing and the
no,
West was weak too. That's
no,
why he was always the favorite. Like
no
I can
way the
say
East was
when
weak.
LeBron was in the East, just like you said, no one was touching Mike.
You know
No
what?
one was touching LeBron in the East.
You know what? When Mike came into the league, he played against Boston. Boston beat them in back-to-back years. How many Hall of Famers did Boston Celtics have? How
I
many
don't know off
Hall
the
of
top of my
Famers?
head, but
How
LeBron's
many
going
Hall of
against Hall of
Famers?
Famers.
You know what? When he
LeBron's
came
going
in the
against Hall
league,
of Famers.
you know what? When he came in the league, you talking about Boston, you talking about Philly, you talking about at that time probably, and Detroit wasn't even up there right when he came in the league. I
So
mean, they
so you
probably
gonna
were, but
say when
the East was tough, Kevin. The East was tough when Mike came in the league.
you act we act like the East didn't have teams during LeBron's era either. Like
They didn't. Go ahead. Go
LeBron had to go up against Carmelo. He had to go up against the Bulls that were very good in the 2010s.
ahead. Huh?
The Bulls were very good in the 2000s with D Rose, Joakim Noah, Boozer, Jimmy Butler. He had to go up against the Celtics. Like we can't just act like these teams weren't tough, even just because they didn't have marquee guys. Like even that Toronto team was tough with DeRozan and Kyle Lowry. LeBron had their number. Like we're gonna stop acting like there weren't players in the East for LeBron to go up
Well,
against.
we,
Just like you say, MJ was so much better than everyone. So was LeBron, which is why he went to like 10 finals in 11 years or whatever the stat was.
and how many did he win?
He went 4 and 6 in finals. But
Eh,
when you look at their full, like if you look at seasons, like all of LeBron seasons and all of Jordan seasons, you could actually say LeBron has had more success than MJ. Because in years when LeBron went to the finals and lost those 6 times, there's many years where Jordan either didn't make the playoffs or got bounced in the first round. But we don't talk about those years.
You
We
know what?
only talk about the 6 and
But
0, the
you know
6 and
what?
0.
You know what? I would have to pull that up because I don't know. I think Mike. Maybe his first year he didn't go to the playoffs.
I'll pull it up. But even like, yeah, not have
Maybe his
gone, but
first.
also
Maybe
he
his
got
first
bounced in the
year.
first round quite a bit.
Why, Kevin? You know what? And I understand that. I understand that.
But all people want to talk about is the 6 and
But you know what? But see, like when you talk about that, I can't say. I would never say myself that LeBron had more success than Michael Jordan.
he's had the
I would
better
never,
career by
just like when
far.
you
He
were
definitely
saying,
had the better
just like when
career.
you were saying, you know what, you got years when LeBron played, you had years when Kobe could have been the best player in the league. You had years when Kevin
Debatable.
Durant was the best player in the league. You
Debatable.
had you had years when Stephen Curry was the best player in the league.
LeBron was going to the finals more than all those guys.
But you know what?
And he
But
has
you
gone more than
but
all those
hold up, we
guys.
just said when you were saying the best player in the league. You can never say that, or you can never bring up nobody that say they was the best player in the league once Mike really took off. You can't say that.
The league has also gotten a lot better. Like you look at, there's not as many repeat champions as before, but we are under a minute, so we got to get ready to wrap this up. But yeah, maybe we'll continue this another day. Um, but yeah, definitely more to come on this. We can talk about this for forever. But
Yeah,
before
yeah.
our airtime runs out, I want to thank everyone for tuning in and make sure you shop the If You Love the Game, You Love the Game merch. But Dad, thanks for joining us today. We definitely
Sure, you
appreciate
you
the
know
time.
we do this all the time anyway.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll just we'll get the people some more of this. See y'all. Peace. Thanks for tuning in.
I hope to do it again soon.